Get ready for Real Talk with Pasha B in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Real Talk with Pasha B. Saturday here in Atlanta. Nice sunny day, and this
hot. It's hot, Pasha.
Hot. I didn't want to use the word hot. It's nice. It's nice. It could be hotter, but it could be hotter. Don't do that. Breathe, black woman. Breathe. We have some very special guests here today to talk to us about the the voting process and rights as voters and things of that nature.
Was that a Freudian?
Let me tell you something.
What you doing,
So last night, just playing with you, but Sheneka, how are you, lady?
I am awesome, Pasha. Awesome.
And how about you go ahead and introduce our guests?
So today we have with us Miss Keisha Carter Brown. Keisha, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful. After I introduce you all, I'm going to have you give us a little bit about each of your backgrounds. We also have Miss Tarenia Carthan. Ma'am, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Sheneka?
Awesome. I'm glad that you all could come in today. You were both highly recommended. Maisha was the connect.
Awesome. Yes.
She was the plug. So thank you, Miss Maisha Good, for connecting us with these young ladies. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of great information for us, education-wise, as far as the importance of voting, especially of voting locally. So I'll start with you, Keisha, since you're closer to me. Would you give us some background information about yourself? Kind of give us some information as far as what brought you into this whole political arena.
Yeah, it's funny because my father is a minister. He's actually a pastor. And so I tell people that everything I know about politics I learned in the Black church.
Okay.
Because it is probably one of the most political places you could ever be. Mm-hmm. And I learned about asking for money. I learned about hierarchy. I learned about
play your position.
Yes, all of those wonderful things. Mm-hmm. And from through that, I remember my first vote cast was when we were voting for who our new pastor was going to be. And I just took it extremely seriously. And my mom was like, "What is wrong with you? We just voted for the pastor. Everybody's voting for this one person." And I was like, "I don't like him." Mm-hmm. I was like, he hasn't earned my vote. She was like, "What is wrong with this child?" So from there, I went on. I remember the first election I remember was Dukakis Bush, the 88 election, presidential. And that just, I was like, okay, are we donkeys or elephants? What's the deal? Mm-hmm. And so from there, I've just always been really engaged in public service and the process. And I got involved with political campaigns and started in 2003. Paid, let me say that. I started getting paid for it in 2003. And I started my company, Razor Solutions Group, in 2011. And so we're based here in Atlanta. And, what we say is public service is our service. Mm-hmm. And so we're all about helping people reach their dreams or their goals of being a public servant. And it's really a passion for me. And I've always said the number one thing I want to do is help especially African Americans realize their power in their vote. Mm-hmm. Even when your person loses, the power in your vote is something that I don't think that we have truly harnessed and understand. And unfortunately, I think too many people are taking it for granted. So I have a lot of work to do to hopefully continue to help and present candidates that people can see are worthy of voting for and electing and making sure that we can get good people in office.
Awesome. And Ms. Carthan,
yes,
give us a little background as far as how you were introduced into the political arena.
I was introduced into the political arena in 1988.
Okay.
I was a first-time employee for the government, and I was asked to go on a voting rights assignment. Had no idea what a voting rights assignment was, and I was going to be a poll watcher for it was for a campaign. But one of the participants, it was down in Bessemer, Alabama. One of the participants was an African American. This was a very contentious race. And so they needed poll watchers to go down here and make sure that there was no funny business. Mm-hmm. And little old me, not understanding how important that was. But they prepped us. They told us, okay, look, you're going to have people that come in and they're going to look at you and they're going to say things, but you cannot say anything. All you have to do is write down what you see. And if you see someone being turned away from the polls. You have to call this number and let us know. And they were paying us to do this. They flew us down to Bessemer. That was my first time on a plane. And I'm like, okay, this voting stuff is really serious, right? I had no idea. And so that was my first introduction to that. And just to see the tension down there between the blacks and the whites for this black man who just wanted to become mayor of the town that he had lived in all of his life. And that right there got me on this, well, if they're being denied there, who else is being denied? And so fast forward, I'm in Douglas County, and I walk into the Democratic Party's meeting, and they want poll watchers. And I'm like, sign me up. I've done this before, and that was my introduction to the Democrats in Douglas County. That was in 2008 or 9, right before Obama got elected. So I was a poll watcher then. Fast forward 4 years, I'm training the poll watchers, right, for the next election. And this time we had enough poll watchers for every precinct in Douglas County because I was serious about getting people to come out. And you don't get paid to be a poll watcher, but you have to have a passion that you want to make sure that no one's rights are discriminated. No one is turned away. Everybody has a right to vote. And so that was my introduction. And because of my passion, they're like, you need to run to become the Democratic Women's President. So I didn't run. Somebody else, took the mantle, and she couldn't finish. And so she called me up, hey, I really need you to take over for me. And I was like, oh, okay. You only got to the end of the year. I'll do it. I did it, and I'm still doing it 2 years later. The next part was the bug. And the next thing was, hey, there's going to be an opening in your district. You should run. I'm like, you should run. And I had to think about, I've been asking other women to run, right? So now I've been helping on other people's campaigns. I've been out there championing their cause. I was like, okay, am I going to be a crybaby? Am I going to be scared? Am I going to push back? Or am I going to step forward? And
you took that step forward. Awesome. And one of the things I noticed, because as I shared with you earlier, I'm in Douglas County, and I'm just going to be very candid with you. It hasn't, maybe over the past couple years, I've kind of been paying attention to what's going on, and I've been going to the meet and greets and meeting some of the candidates and just becoming more familiar with what's going on in my backyard. And one of the things I noticed in the 2016 election was locally the number of positions where you had candidates who were running unchallenged. I think I counted 9 positions. And I was like, wow, that's an opportunity. Yes. That's definitely an opportunity for someone who wants to make a difference to get their foot in the door. Because I think when you have candidates who are unchallenged, and I'm thinking, I don't know this to be true, I think they can get a little complacent.
Very much so.
I think it depends on the candidate. So I'll take it from kind of the consultant side. When we have someone that's not challenged and it's someone that we've supported, we're like, that's a sign that they've been doing a good job. Is what we hope that's a sign of, is that we're doing a good job. And sometimes, right now, there's so much energy, right, around elections, and you hear about the blue wave. And in some places, and we were kind of talking about this earlier, in some places, you're just having some people just simply just sign up for sign up's sake. They're not really wanting to be there. They're just like, I've got to do something. And they go, and what they're doing is not necessarily the right thing even for them or for the position they're running for. You may hurt people more than help people if you don't understand what it is that you're actually running for. And we've seen that definitely here in Georgia. It's been an interesting primary season, to say the least. Yeah.
And I think, Pasha, you brought that up earlier when you were talking about all the different positions. And you're like, what they do?
Right.
What they do? What's that?
Yeah. I'm actually interested in talking about some background about the electoral process, whether that be on the federal or the local level, because I don't think a lot of people actually understand it, even from the root of it. So if any one of you ladies want to take that as far as, again, the background of the electoral process.
Well, I want to make sure I understand. Do you want to say...
Why do we vote?
Why do we vote? So we are a republic, and it is important that we elect people that are going to, I would say, represent our wants and our needs and the things that we want for our communities. And so in that, we want to make sure that we are electing people that do that. The hard part, I think, about understanding the electoral process is the connection to that. Because you hear so many people say, well, it's not going to matter. They're going to do whatever they want to anyway. And that is not the case. One of the things that I've been fortunate enough to do is to take groups up to D.C. and go and visit members of Congress. And I remember I was lobbying with one group and we were visiting members, and they said, and one of the staffers took my group to the side. They said, look here, we know this issue is important to you, but let me show you something. This is how many letters we received for what you're doing. Mm-hmm. This is how many letters we received. And I mean, it was like 20 times the amount against what you're asking us to do. I don't have the will to make those kind of decisions. Mm-hmm. And so voting makes a difference. And then after you vote, being in contact with those people to say, yes, we want this. No, we don't. When they say call your senator, call your congressman, that is serious business. There are people there who are keeping tabs of who's saying yes, who's saying no, who's saying stop, who's saying go. Because here's the one piece you always have. You can not reelect them. All politicians, all candidates want to get reelected. If they see their district is not going with them, they are going to do different things.
So as a voter, the process is to vote people, exercise your right to vote people to be put into positions that represent what you want for your area, right? Yes. And then for the congressman or for the politician who's running for that position, it's for them to actually do what their constituents elected them to do.
Exactly.
I think but I would say it's a two-parter though, because I still think there's a belief that if you're elected, your constituents are electing you because they trust you, and that you have to make decisions. You listen to what they're saying, but you also have to make decisions in the best interest of the district. And that may not be the majority of the phone calls that you're getting, right? That may be in the best interest of not only your district, but it might be America. What's best for the country may not be what's going to be great for your district. What's best for the long term may not be what's best in the short term. And that's where you have conflicts with voters, because sometimes they don't understand that grander process. And they want, especially now in this society, they want the instant rather than the long.
So if you have that type of dynamic, what would you suggest a candidate, since we have a candidate here, how should they engage their constituents?
You have to be transparent, and you have to go to the people. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times candidates don't. I've been knocking on doors, and I can't count the number of people that have told me I've never had anybody knock on my door. Mm-hmm. I don't even know who my current commissioner is, or who my current state rep is. And I was lucky I had state rep Kimberly Alexander to knock on doors with me to kind of like help me get some validity, because I'm young, right? So they open a door and they're like, you were running for what? You don't even look the part to but she wants them to know, hey, she's a good candidate. She's serious. She understands the issue. She has experience. But people don't get to just talk one-on-one with someone who's representing them or someone who wants to represent them. So the person who's running has the duty, or should have the duty, to go and see what is it that my district, my constituents, the taxpayers need. What is it? You have to keep your ear to the street. Okay, once you get your ear to the street, now you have to take what you've gotten and tell them, email me. I went to see my commissioner, the current commissioner. He's not running for re-election. We're good.
She gave me the eye wink. We're good.
We're good. And he says, you will be a great commissioner. I went in and he had a binder, to your point, of everybody who had ever emailed him on an issue.
Oh, wow.
Because this is what you take to the table to say, this is what my people want. And if you don't have, you can tell me all day what you want, but I need to have it in black and white so that I can have this as a paper trail. So when I'm going up against you who don't want it, okay, well, this is how many people do want it. And that is a serious thing that we as African Americans don't do. We don't hold our elected officials accountable. You hold them accountable by emailing them, by calling, by showing up at commissioners' meetings, the mayoral meeting. You go and you sit there and you let them see you face to face. This is what I want. This is what I need. And they know if they see you, there's probably 10 more just like you that you're associated with. So they want to know, okay, well, what is it? What is it that you need? How can I help?
Absolutely. And I think that's what contributes to the disengagement of people and them not voting, because I think most people think, oh, let me just go vote. And then after that, they're done.
Yeah.
So when their issues aren't brought to the table or their concerns aren't addressed, they get mad and they start talking, oh, why are we voting? My vote doesn't count. But people need to understand that voting is just the beginning, right? You have to follow through.
I think one of the prime examples, first thing, when Ferguson happened, the first thing I did was look at their power structure. The first thing I did was look at their power structure. That city is 65%, or at least was 65% African American, but their entire power structure was white. And so when you have a power structure that does not look like the people that it represents, and then the people that it represents does not hold folks accountable, these types of things are what happens. And so it's very, very important. If you look anywhere, I always say, if you look anywhere where you have your poorest areas in any city, I can promise you that's probably the weakest areas of voting. And there's a reason for that, because they know that I have 30,000 people here that are eligible to vote, but 3,000 of them show up, and I know who all 3,000 of them are. And that's who I'm listening to. The rest of y'all, you know, I can do other stuff, because I don't really have to do much more but make sure this 3,000 is taken care of, because that's how I get back in the office. Not that they don't care, but I mean, there are some self-serving things when you are running. You want to get reelected, you know, and when you want to get reelected, you got to listen to the people that elected you. And if you don't see a threat of being unelected or not returning, that's why I say, even if you lose, it's important to vote. Because if the vote was 51-49, I'm like, whoa, let me go see what this 49% wants, because I might be in trouble. You know, one little slither and I'm out. So I'm going to pay attention a little bit more to that 49% when things change. But when the votes are 70-30, well, we're going to keep doing it. You basically, that is a referendum on what I have done, and you're telling me to keep doing it.
Well, let's go ahead and start talking about the different positions, especially on the local level. I shared with you guys prior to us becoming live that when this primary just came around in Georgia, I was playing hot potato when it came to the buttons. So I'm going to say in Georgia, and then maybe you can expound on, and I'm going to say that it may sound like I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and I probably don't. But do all of these positions kind of relate to, or are they in all states? So what are some of the main local positions? Like I see like deputy commissioner and all of that stuff. Explain to us some of the more important roles on the local level and what that should mean to the voter.
So your first one would definitely be governor.
Okay.
Deputy governor.
Okay.
Insurance commissioner. Yeah.
Okay, let's put a pin. Okay. My insurance commissioner. How does that affect me?
Can she not go through the
No, because I'm going to forget. Let's stop. Yeah. Insurance commissioner.
Insurance commissioner. Okay, we all drive, especially right here in Georgia, right? It seems like every single one of us has a car, right? Your insurance commissioner gets to regulate what the rules are going to be regarding insurance rates. I will say redlining, all of those issues where, you know, you're in a certain segment of the city and your insurance may be a little higher than someone else's who's in another segment of the city because they think because you're in this segment that crime is higher, so I'm going to rate you a little bit higher, so your premium is going to be higher, even though you may drive a lesser car than the person who's maybe 5-10 miles from you, but because they're driving a Mercedes and they're in the 30324 zip code and you're in the 30318 zip code, we're going to rate you differently. Insurance commissioners get to handle all of that, so that's about your pocket. That's your money.
Gotcha. And we have some of the highest car insurance rates in the country, and they keep going up. And that's a reflection of what the policies and regulatory decisions that are being made from the insurance commissioner's office.
All right, can we get back to what the position
is? So she said governor, you've got lieutenant governor, so we call ours lieutenant governor in Georgia, insurance commissioner, you've got the state school superintendent, you have the labor commissioner. You also have, and I look most of these in my Candace, and I'm trying to remember who everybody is. Labor commissioner. You have also public service commissioner, which a lot of people take for granted what that is. Those are the folks that regulate Georgia Power, solar power, nuclear power, your power bills, how those are calculated, and those types of things. So your PSC is all the way at the bottom, but extremely important. And so those are your big statewide things that you have. But outside of that, your attorney generals. Don't forget about your attorney generals. Very important. And your secretary of state. So secretary of state decides what voting machines we have. Do you get a receipt with your voting machine? How you register vote? What the ways you can vote. So that's your secretary of state.
If they can throw your
if they can purge you from the rolls.
From the rolls, that's right.
And that was the Secretary of State?
Secretary of State.
Okay.
So I think something just passed a little while ago. I hope I get this right. That basically, if you do not participate in 3 elections in a row, they can purge you off the rolls.
That's for the state of Georgia?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's new. I've never
And this is the
heard
Secretary of State?
Yes.
We need to find out who this mofo is.
So right now is Brian Kemp. He is running for governor. He's the famous one that was pointing the gun at the gentleman. That is your Secretary of State.
Oh, wow.
That is your Secretary of State. Current.
Check. Okay.
Yeah. So you got those are your big statewide offices, right? They're going to be at the top of the ballot. And then following those are going to be more your state reps and state senators.
Okay.
And so we call them state representatives and state senators here. In other places, they may call them delegates. I'm trying to think of all the different words and names. But usually most states have a bicameral legislature. So a lower house and an upper house. They may call it something different. So those are the folks that deal with the things on the state level.
Gotcha.
Their main objective is supposed to be to pass a budget. When we talked about religious freedom bills, that's the state legislature. We talk about how our schools are getting funded. That's the state legislature. Grady, I used to do some lobbying for Fulton County. Grady is our only major trauma hospital in the entire state, but it is only funded by some funding from the state, DeKalb, and Fulton counties, even though every single city and county in this entire state fly their injured to Grady. They don't fund it.
Now, a couple years ago, wasn't there something on the ballot about adding like $10 for another trauma center? Or
there may have been. There's a lot of times some ballot questions, but they're just questions that we don't like. In Florida, they have ballot referendums a lot in Florida. We don't do that as much in Georgia. Our state legislature mostly makes those decisions. Only some things require a ballot referendum in order to take place.
Got it.
And you may have had questions on your primary ballot.
Okay.
Those questions just to gauge what people are thinking. Yeah. And if they need to take it back to committee and see if it needs to be policy or legislation that needs to come down the pike. So it's so important that we go vote, because these are the types of things that you wonder, well, how did that law even get into play?
I'm curious about this hands-free law that's supposed to be coming into effect tomorrow in Georgia.
Yes. Please make sure.
How much the ticket? Just tell us how much the ticket's going to be.
No, I'm more concerned with which hands had the most input on making that a law.
So How can I talk about this in the right way?
Just say it, Keisha. Just say it.
So hands-free law is it's something you've seen that's been coming across the United States in different legislatures anyway. So I'm not surprised that it finally made its way to Georgia. The issue is, and where we could get in trouble or where it could become an issue, is that if they think you're using your phone, they can pull you over, right? How do you really know I'm using my phone or any other GPS device or anything in the car? What I'm more concerned about is that it gives people another option to pull you over. And that's where other things can happen, because once I pull you over, I can then get into some other things. Not saying that's what everybody does, but that is what more of my concern is that now that we have this, it's like, oh, you look like you're on the phone. Let me pull you over. Same thing like, oh, you got a broken tail light when you don't have a broken tail light, right? Or your brake lights aren't working when they were fine, right? So things like that I'm always concerned about when it comes to more justice issues, because we all know that Black and brown folks are pulled over at a much, much higher rate than anyone else. And so this hands-free law is going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years and what those statistics look like.
And that's why I'm curious at who really pushed the initiative, because some of these things are very specific. You only have one time to touch your phone, right?
Who's counting?
This is
how can they count?
This is why I want to know whom made the decision, because again, I don't think the powers that be who made this decision had it out or had the best interest of certain people at heart. It really not.
So I think that the complicated thing about this is that you had two different sides coming. Of course, you have people that didn't have the best interests at heart, but then you had people that you had mothers and fathers who had their children or friends or family killed because somebody was paying attention to their phone rather than driving. So when you hear those emotional stories, it's going to be very difficult for you to be like, I don't care.
No.
Everybody can touch the phone.
And that's true. Yeah. But there are bigger issues at hand. Yeah. So the amount of people that may be killed by someone texting, and I'm not trying to minimize it, but they taking kids away from their parents, and they're putting, separating families and putting people in detention centers. That number is far more greater than the amount of people who get killed by someone that's texting. Because you know what? You may not get killed, or you may not have a family member that gets killed by someone who's texting, but somebody can be in their purse looking for something, some putting on makeup.
Or even touching your radio.
Right, touching your
If I'm touching my radio, how can you distinguish whether or not I'm changing the channel on my dashboard versus touching my phone?
To me, there are so many distractors that could potentially lead into. So why this phone? Why the phone?
Because whoever had the money,
thank you.
Whoever had the power,
thank you, ma'am,
pushed that thing through.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think so. Overall, I don't think it's a bad law. Right? Because it is a safety issue. And, as you're driving,
and that's the way that it was presented, as a safety issue, not as a we need to pull over more folks issue.
Yes.
So sometimes when I used to lobby, I would always take things and be like, okay, how can we present this in a way where I can get everybody on board with me? And that's just honest. Like,
I want to business.
I want to present this thing in a way where it's going to benefit the people that I represent. And that's a hard truth that folks don't want to hear, but that's what I'm going to do because that's the job that I'm paid to do. And so I'm sure with the distracted driving law, I didn't get to spend as much time at the Dome this year as I have in years past, but I do know that there was a lot about the safety of it and how many people have been killed in Georgia because of texting and driving or distracted driving or things like that, especially amongst teenagers and things. So that was used mostly. These other pieces I'm sure were not talked about. Now, we could talk about the fact that both chambers are all led by one party as well as your executive branch. So there may not have been a lot of opportunity to have additional conversations because you don't have the power to be able to push those conversations out either.
Right.
And that goes back to voting, because if you do not vote, you do not have people who can come to the table and think about the other side of the issue, right? We don't have a Democratic state or Senate. We just don't. And so that means you don't have a lot of brown people who have experienced things that the other side has not experienced.
So
they don't bring it to the table. When
so with that, you still can hold them accountable. So I think that's another piece that's missing. So we feel as though my guy or my woman isn't in office, so there's nothing I can do. We still can hold them accountable. We still can write, definitely. And we still can influence some of the laws that are coming about.
And I think the one thing that that a lot of voters don't know or don't understand is that these are people at the end of the day. Now, some of them are a little nuts, but most of them are truly people. And they did get into this because they believed a certain way. And they had enough people that believed right along with them. But for the most part, whenever I would bring groups, whether it be D.C. or to Georgia, I could pretty much get in to see the legislator most of the time and go and talk to them and say, look, we don't like this because of this, that, or the other. Or we do like this because this, that, or the other. But, the Gold Dome can be a little intimidating, or somebody that has rep or senator or commissioner or whatever in front of their name can be very intimidating for them. For me, it's never been intimidating. Like I said, my daddy's a pastor. So, I've always been used to being around people who other folks deem as powerful. And I know they put their pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. And so I think that scares a lot of folks to be able to speak up because they have these titles, and that's not the case.
Well, I'm glad you're bringing that up because this is a great segue into voter rights. So people actually don't know that it is your right to reach out to your representatives, to your mayors and your governors and things of that nature to voice your opinion. So walk us through not even what the voter right process is, but walk us through if someone wants to get in contact, as Sheneka was saying, just because this may not have been the person that you elected, this is the person that represents you. So if I have an issue that I want to have brought up, or if I want to talk to that person, how do I go about getting in contact with that person?
The first thing you need to do is you need to look at your voter registration card. When they mail you that voter registration card, everything and everybody that is connected to you in voting is on that card. Second thing you need to do is Google. Google the names that you see on there. Everything about them will come up. Their webpage, their email address, their office address, their phone number to get in contact with them, who their aides are, every bills that they have passed, bills that they have helped pass, everything about them will come up. That's your cue. But a great way to get in touch with them is find them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You start tweeting about something, they're quick to answer you. They're quick to get on that because they don't want their name or they don't want an issue sullied. And we know that social media is viral. It is quick.
And it gets you what you want.
It gets you what you want.
It does.
It does that. And I would tell people, don't be offended if you talk to an aide. I've had folks tell me, oh, we're not going to get to see him. But we got to talk to this aide. Those aides are very influential in helping them to make decisions. And a lot of times certain aides are, when you definitely have a bigger budget, you have certain aides that are assigned to certain parts of legislation, or they may be assigned to law and justice. And this one may be assigned to housing. This one may be assigned to something else. And so sometimes people get offended when they feel like they've been put off on an aide. But that aide probably honestly knows more about your issue than even the person they elected. That's why they're there, to make sure that the elected official knows and understands what it is that this person is talking about. So I would tell folks, don't be offended if you get passed off to an aide, and understand that they have a lot of sway and a lot of say with the person that they actually are working with. So
Google and use the power of social media.
Yes. Okay. Definitely. That and that goes across the board with everything. I mean, you look at, it does. Hotels, car manufacturers, you name
airlines.
It. Airlines. You name it.
I had a bad experience I won't say it was a bad experience because they rectified the experience, but I went to Jamaica last year. I had an initial bad experience with the resort, and I won't say any names because they made it whole. But I said, okay, we are not getting what we need. So in Jamaica, I just hopped on every social media account that I had. I added them. I tweeted them. And within 24 hours, I got a call. And even though they were in the process they were just a little bit slower than what I needed them to be, because I came to Jamaica to get away. And my getting away time wasn't what I paid for. So social media, and especially connecting with whether it be businesses and the representatives, government officials on social media, that gets everybody attention. Right. You know, we are in a society where we video everything, we tweet everything, we post everything, so that gets the masses' attention.
And brand management is everything.
Oh my God, yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
Sheneka, you have any stats for us? How many people are actually voting in Georgia?
How you know that's a stat I had? Don't ask me specific questions now.
Is that a stat you have?
No. Okay. No. Okay, so I have some stats from the 2016 election, and that was apparently a historic election. Let me see. Over 137 million people voted in that election.
This is presidential.
The 2016 election. However, one of the things when I broke down the numbers, it says ethnic minorities, Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians only accounted for 26.7% of that vote.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Ladies?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are what they are.
This is Pew research, man. Yeah. This is Pew, okay?
You're voting. I tell people all the time, there are two things folks lie about the most: going to church and voting. And all that stuff is public. You know, we know if you voted. And when I tell people, I'm like, oh, I can look you up right now. You can look me up? Yes, your voting record, not who you voted for, but your record is public information. Anybody can go look you up. And I know which elections you voted in. I know which elections you missed. And that also goes back to who also gets the attention. So when we talk about, you know, well, I haven't heard from anybody, you haven't heard because you don't vote. So because you don't vote in these elections, they're not reaching out to you because they're not expecting you to turn out.
So let me ask this question, and in regards to Tarenia. Okay. Pasha and Tarenia. We're going to get this together. You going door to door, and that's kind of what I was used to back in the day, you know, seeing the people who were voting going door to door. Is that still prominent? Do people actually go? Where are they, though? Keisha shaking her head. Yeah, I don't see nobody in Fulton County coming to check me.
Wow. I go door to door, but Douglas County is large, but it's small enough that I can. And then to what Keisha was saying, those resources of other bodies helping you to go door to door is so crucial. I mean, I'm begging volunteers, help me. Phone bank, go door to door with me. I'm pulling everybody out, you know, out of their house, outside of their house.
You see how hot it is today?
I know, girl. Ain't nobody going out there.
Right, and saying, meet me at 10 a.m. to go knock on some doors for 2 hours.
And it's not happening.
I've led plenty of canvases where folks get there and they're like, how long are we going to be out here? 2 hours. Whew. It's well, I can probably give you about 45 minutes. They knock on 2 doors and they're gone. Right? It's like our whole canvas is gone. And so when you're trying to get elected, getting elected is all about numbers. So we're looking at how many doors do we need to knock today, tomorrow, all of this. And then if you don't have the people to knock, and then you don't have the resources, meaning you don't have the money to pay people to knock for you, you're not going to get knocks at the doors because Fulton County is huge, first off. Yep. And then depending on what you're running for, even these districts we have, even in the city of Atlanta or even outside in the other cities, it takes a lot of resources to get knocks on the door. Like I live in the 6th district, which is the one where Ossoff ran the $30 million race in a special election, set a bunch of records. I probably got about, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 knocks, but he had $30 million, right? That probably won't happen again, right? But he had $30 million and then there was all this extra money being poured in. Right. So not only were his people knocking, but the other outside groups that were supporting him were also knocking. And then I was getting text messages on top of that. You know, so all of that takes money and people and resources. And unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to run for office that does not pay you that much.
I know, and Tarenia, you were speaking about that earlier before you arrived, Keisha. So, you were speaking about that earlier. So, can you just elaborate on that? Because I know you spoke about how much the position that you are seeking, how much that pays, versus what people may think.
Exactly. So, the position I'm running for only pays me $27,000. I can't pay my mortgage with what they are trying to pay me. Plus, I have to raise money in order to run an effective campaign, right? So for that alone, that keeps a lot of people from wanting to run for office because they're like, well, I have to raise this amount of money. It's not going to pay me a lot. Everybody's in my business. Everybody's scrutinizing everything I do. Why would I want to run? So you have to get people to see beyond that. You have to get, for me, I'm running because I have 4 amazing daughters that I want to leave a better county to. I'm running because I see the issues that are in front of us in Douglas County, that I want to make sure that we're progressing and that we're not staying stagnant. I want to make sure that I leave a better tomorrow than today. So I'm running not for me. I'm in the words of my boy, I'm not running for my first name. I'm running for my last name. I'm running for the legacy that is to come. So I can't sit on the sidelines. So I will have to keep my full-time job and do this part-time job. But there is a means to the end. There's a reason for it. So that keeps a lot of people from running. But I want to tell people, don't let that keep you from running. There is so much that you can do. And we have some amazing, and I'm just going to say, because I'm sitting in front of 3 amazing Black women who are all educated, who all have a passion, who all have talents and experiences that they need to bring to the table. We need our young people to know that you can do this. You can run. There is a place for you. Your voice matters, and it starts with your vote.
I'm so glad you brought that up, talking about the young folks. Do you think that we are connecting with our young adults and educating them? I know back in 2008 we were, but I don't know if that is still, top priority where we're getting out there and we're talking to our young voters. When President Obama was first running, you had the voter die and all that stuff going on. The governor, the rock the vote, all of that stuff was going on. Are we actually impacting? Are we getting out there talking to the young adults and telling them how important your vote is?
Sanders. Bernie Sanders brought out so many young people who were just energized about what he was saying, but he was talking to their issues, which is our issues. He was talking about, hey, we need to make sure that we allow our students to go to school for free. Students heard that. They were like, well, I want him because these student loans are no joke. Right? You get to the issues that they are familiar with that really hits home, and yes, it will bring them out. But another thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we understand that voting is just not at the ballot. We need to put voting online. Our kids do everything online. My girls do everything online. So we need to ensure, okay, if that's where our kids are, and we're already doing everything. We do banking online, right? I found my hairstylist. We find everybody
you can go
online.
To school
we can go to school online. So you mean to tell me you can't secure it where I can vote online?
And Sheneka, when you posted that question, someone actually said, well, I don't understand why I can't vote online.
No. We're not there. I mean, we're not there yet. Because as great as security is, the breaches are still too high, and we are definitely in a cyber war right now, whether we want to admit it or not. And so we're not there yet.
So
I'm just thinking
I'm trying to remember what year this was. I'm originally from Florida, and I want to say this was
to my 2000.
Was it the 2000?
With the hand chats?
Yes. And after they had tallied all the cards and what have you, they're finding ballots in the trunk of cars. So it seems as though that's going to be a challenge regardless of...
Well, paper ballots don't exist as much as they used to. So most states, not all, but most states have gone to an electronic system, or at least that. And at least early voting has expanded. So we used to have 45 days of early voting in Georgia, and that's shrunk to 21 now. But they gave us a Saturday, right? And that, again, was because people weren't really taking advantage of the first couple of weeks of early voting. They weren't coming to the last 21 days, and they were able to push that and say that. But so most of your voting these days are done by machine, which there's a lot of fear out there that machines can be hacked. We all saw, even in the Ossoff race, there were some issues with machines, and the entire country was waiting on us for results that we could not give them because we were having some issues with our machines. And so
the internet was down.
Yes. So it was a problem. So these are some of the reasons why we can't quite move over there. I think it'll happen one day. But I want to go back to your earlier question about young people. And I love young people. I have worked with and employ all folks under 30. But they don't vote. They didn't vote in 2008. They didn't vote in 2016. They haven't been voting. And part of the reason is that I don't think that they quite understand how it relates to them yet. And that's the reason why your older voters are still your number one voters, right? They're the ones that come out hella hot water. They don't care if it's raining, if it's snowing, what's going on. I'm going to vote. And you know they're going. I give the example in 2016. You all remember when there was a large Black Lives Matter protest downtown and Mayor Reed was like, y'all, Dr. King didn't take the highway. Y'all ain't gonna take the highway, right? Right after that, there was a runoff for the Solicitor General and the sheriff in Fulton County. We had, I think was it a 2% turnout in that race? The sheriff of the county and the Solicitor General who deals with misdemeanor crimes, and they didn't show up. Y'all were just protesting.
I don't think they connect. They don't know how to connect.
There's no connection there. And that's where I think where we have an opportunity is because if people start to understand that you mean my mayor selects the police chief? Yes, they're appointed by your mayor. So the way you elect your mayor determines how your police departments are going to be ran. And so I think when we start to make those connections, it'll help for young people. But I will also say that I think for young folks, it's just they're a little selfish too. You know, we all were when we were younger, right? It's all about me right now. This is what I'm into. And being about me is not understanding the world on a bigger scale. I think as you get older, as you buy houses, as you have kids, you're like, wait a minute, I have a responsibility to make sure they're going to be okay. They eventually get there, but it's very tough to get young people out to vote.
So I want to talk about the Stacey Abrams running for governor. How important was that in Georgia, her actually winning? And how will that, if she does become the governor of Georgia, how important is that going to be on a federal level?
Well, first of all, it's monumental, right? So we can't shortchange that. I mean, what she did on a couple of different fronts. One is saying, look, I'm going to run and y'all going to accept me for who I am and what I am.
Amen.
And then number two, she brought out over, I think we had 200,000 more voters turned out than we've had in a primary, I think ever, when we were looking at the numbers. Hopefully I have that correct. And that's amazing in itself. And she ran, from my perspective, in the primary, she ran her race, or they ran their race the way that she wanted to run it. She did not run it according to what we say traditional standards are. You raise a bunch of money, you just hold it off to the end, and then you spend it later. She's like, no, we're going to establish offices. We're going to use our money. We're going to spend it. I don't care what y'all got to say. And like, well, Stacey got debt. Well, I'm going to go on Forbes magazine to talk to you about it. And I'm going to do this and do that. And Stacey has this. Well, I'm going to talk to you about it this way. So she's been very open and transparent and honest. And her becoming governor is not going to be it's going to be hard and hard to do. And if you just look
Keisha, why is it going to be hard?
Well, look at your Republican candidates right now. You've got Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle, who took on Delta during the legislative session. Delta is our largest employer. And he pretty much said, threw the finger at them, Delta. And we were all sitting here like, did he really just do that?
They gonna take that?
Yeah, like, well, they didn't, they were waiting on them for the tax cut. Like, give us our tax break. And they was like, no, we're not giving it to you until you do this for our crazy people. Right. Yeah. And it's just like, this is nuts. So he's crazy. Or at least how he's running is crazy. I don't believe Casey is crazy. I think how he is running is crazy. I was watching the Republican gubernatorial debate in Florida this week, and everybody was it was a Trump cheering section. It was like, who loves Donald Trump the most? I think we're going to see the same thing out of our Republican candidates. Who can go the furthest to the Trump? And I won't even say to the right. It's going to be the furthest to the Trump to make a difference. And that's scary because that means they're probably going to say a lot of crazy things.
And do a lot of crazy
things. Security has to be very careful on the trail for her because of some folks out there. And we can't take that for granted. And I hope that we still got a lot of Black and brown folks that still stayed home in the primary. And I'm hoping that we can get them out in the general, because it's going to take everybody to make a difference, because the votes are here. It's just we got to show up.
And I want to piggyback off of what you just said about security. And a lot of Black and brown people stayed home. What we don't know is that in counties like Warrenton, Georgia, where they are intimidated, where they are told not to go to the polls, where the people who employ them say, if you go vote, you won't have a job come Monday morning. Those are the types of things that we don't know about, why it's so important that we, as individuals who do have freedoms that live in Atlanta, and we just go vote all willy-nilly if we feel like it. But there are those who are in rural counties who want to vote, who know it's the right thing to do, but they have to determine whether I'm going to eat or whether I'm going to vote for the person that I know is going to help me eat.
And I think you made a really good point, Tarenia, because I think we get it twisted and not recognizing that there's Atlanta and then there's Georgia.
Exactly. Two different places.
It's two different places, and Georgia is a big state outside of Atlanta. So, which is even more of a reason why those of us who, whether you're in Atlanta or outside or in Georgia, you have to show up. We can't take for granted that, that we got it.
We got this.
We got this.
We don't. If you ever want to be reminded of what the rest of Georgia is like, just go to the Gold Dome one day. Because the Gold Dome is a reflection of what the rest of Georgia is like. I remember when I first got here, I was lucky enough to go and work for Lieutenant Governor. And I was 25 years old, working for Lieutenant Governor in his office. And a gentleman walked in. And I'm from Kentucky, and Kentucky is Kentucky. But, in Georgia, I did not expect this, because I'm in Atlanta, right? There's Black people owning stuff, right? They don't understand. And that Gold Dome, it's different. You might as well be in South Georgia at that point in time. And this man walked in, and he was like, "Oh, you're new." And I was like, "Yes, sir." I don't even remember which senator it was. And he was like, "Oh, that's really good. Do you vote?" And I was like, "I'm working for the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, and you ask me if I vote?" Like, those are the types of things that happen up there. And those are the types of, like what you said, the intimidation is real. The parking of sheriff's cars by precincts and parking of police cars by the precincts. Not that we got out and arrested anybody, but if you're worried you might have a warrant, or you're worried that they're looking for me, or I may look like somebody, or somebody I know may be something else, that voter intimidation is real. And it's definitely going on in a lot of different places. And so we have to recognize that and not lose the responsibility we have in the metro area to go out and do the right thing.
So tell us, the voters, how we become a part of the process. Like, how do we support Tarenia? How do we become fully involved in the process?
Well, I'm going to say this for you. Write her a check. Go on her website.
Tarenia,
click the donate button. And the reason I say that, I'm primarily a fundraiser because, and I stay in fundraising because, there are very few African-American fundraisers in the country, period. So there aren't a whole lot of us that do this. And money has been the one barrier that we have struggled with as Black and brown folks. And even add on top of that, being a woman on top of all that. That's the place where we struggle. We have not connected how much money means in today's elections, because the folks that we know that got elected back in the day, money wasn't an issue. There wasn't campaign finance reform. I didn't have to report what was going on. We just all kind of marched, got together. Somebody printed my T-shirt. Everybody went walking. That is not the way it works anymore. My average state house seat that pays $17,000 a year is costing about $150,000 to run, right? You get paid $17,000. It's going to cost you $150,000 to run. That's crazy. And it's only going to get more expensive because we're trying to get everybody's attention. All those ads you see on Facebook, those cost money. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, all that costs money. And then I got to have people to do it on top of it. So first thing she needs a check from everybody, and it don't matter the size.
CarthanForDC.com. That's CARTHAN.
There you go.
The number 4, DC.com.
And click on that donate button and make it recurring. If you can't give a bunch right now, make it $5 every month or every week or something. But we've got to get into a giving mode. So that's one way to do it. The other way is a lot of what you said before is once people get elected, show up. If you've got time, show up. Please. And I know that sometimes the meetings are not convenient. They be in the middle of the day. They be at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Challenge them to have meetings at times where more people can come.
That happened in Douglas County. It was challenged. And so our current commissioner, the chairwoman of the commission in Douglas County, she moved meetings to 6 o'clock. So they have one meeting a month at 6 o'clock. So that people who get off, who work the 9 to 5,
look what happens when people show up.
That's what I'm talking about. You put it in black and white, and enough was in black and white where she went to the commission and said, look, my people need us to have this meeting at 6 o'clock. So it's much more convenient for us to have it at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we go on about our business. But then if we're doing the business of the people need to be there. So
absolutely.
I know I don't remember who was saying this, but I know a part of the process of running, even if you can't give the money or the time, sharing and telling people about the candidate who's running and just putting the person's name out there. So do you think that's helpful as well?
That's definitely helpful. I tell people 3 things you can do for me, even if you don't live in Douglas County. One is you can pray for me, because prayers of the righteous availeth much. The second thing is donate. But the third thing is tell somebody about me. Yeah. Tell somebody about me. Because when you tell somebody about me, it starts to get the wheels running. Oh, you know someone that's running for office? Really? I mean, that gets their wheels running. They may start to look up me. They may start to see, okay, well, what does this, what does this title hold? What are all the responsibilities of this, right? So it starts to get them to thinking. The more we think about it, the more we get educated about it, the more we are likely to show up to vote and to start to hold those people we vote for accountable.
And I think even going to what you said earlier, Pasha, when you were playing hopscotch, if you just had name recognition. I don't know what Tarenia got, but I heard her name. So let me go ahead and press that button.
Absolutely.
So I think that's very important.
Yep, exactly.
Very, very important.
Because our friends or the people that we know at our churches, at our civic organizations, at our sororities, we think that they know what they're talking about. So if they tell me about a Pasha B, I'm going to be more likely to vote on Pasha because my friend knows her.
Vote for Pasha B. I'm not running for anything. Just vote for me. But you're absolutely this conversation has really, really opened up my eyes, and I will be supporting you as much as I can. And whether that's a check, whether that is posting, or whether that is definitely telling somebody about you. You have my vote, even though I ain't in Douglas County, but you got my vote.
Look, you can go drive people to the polls. She gonna need that on election day.
Waving signs,
all that kind of stuff.
I was a candidate, but I was waving signs for another candidate.
See, now you sound like most of the volunteers I get.
Indoor work.
Y'all ain't phone banking. Y'all ain't phone banking.
Just let her write the check.
Yeah.
Just let her write the check.
I'm like, ooh, it's hot.
Like, that's me all day. I'm not even gonna lie. Not gonna lie.
But people go through so much to get elected because it's so important. So if you see somebody out there knocking on your door and you're like, well, what do they want? Open the door. Because everybody who opens the door, I always ask, so what is it in the county that you like to see changed? And they're going to tell me something, whether it's the roads. I had one person to tell me, and this is not a part of my position, but she told me that the buses pick her kids up too early in the morning, and the school is less than half a mile, but her kids have to be at the bus stop at 6:45, and school starts at 8. Why does the bus have to be there so early? Okay, that's your school board. You need to be talking to them about that, and you need to find out why. But more than likely, it's because they don't have enough school bus drivers, right? But then it goes back to, well, what are the bus drivers being paid? What is the incentive? Okay, now we're talking about this is why you have to go out to vote, because the people who regulate what the school bus drivers make, their insurance benefits, all of that has to do with you going out to vote. Period. So
it's all connected.
So Tarenia and people like you, people who want to become a politician, no matter what level, how do they become a part of the process.
How should they groom themselves?
Oh, well, like, whether it be someone of my age, like what if I say I just want to go out there and I just want to be your local blase blah? Pasha's gonna lie. I want to be your.
When does Erykah Badu rap on your head?
Girl.
You're too black. They don't
Girl.
sound.
No, you're not.
Thank
You are exactly what is needed.
So if at my age I wanted to become a part of the movement or become a part of the solution, I'm gonna say, because we all got problems out here, and if you're not a part of the solution, then you're a part of the problem. So at my age, if I wanted to become a local representative,
What's your age?
Girl, shut your mouth.
I don't know. You look 30.
How would I do that? And then I'm also curious if we're talking to a young adult, right? So we're talking about to a high school student who says that they are interested in at one point in time becoming a politician. What path should they take? Because we know you can't be out there doing everything. If you plan on going, certain places.
In the closet,
well,
Keisha.
I'll say that, well, not necessarily. I think that people are a lot more forgiving than folks think.
I think if your skin color is the right color,
that helps too. But it depends on where you're running as well.
Right.
I mean, black folks, we're some of the most forgiving people in the world. You know, we'll forgive a lot. So I think it really depends on what you did and what you did to redeem yourself. And I'll just say this quickly from the consultant side. So one of the things that I do when somebody comes to me and they're like, I want to run for office, first thing I ask is, where do you live? Give me your address, because we need to see first what you're eligible for, right? What are the offices that you could possibly run for? And so I do what we call a candidate matrix. So we're going to look at every single office that you could possibly run for, even if it sounds outlandish. Everything from Congress to U.S. Senate to whatever. We're going to talk about who's currently in that office. We're going to talk about when the next time those elections are, what we think it's actually going to cost, and those types of things. And then what it means for your time, because a lot of times people say they want to run for something and they don't realize that if I run for state rep, I got to be off work for 3-4 months every year. I'm going to be at the Gold Dome. And some people don't know that. And they're like, well, I don't know if I can get off work for 4 months. It's like, well, honey, you should have known that before you ran. And I've seen people run for the wrong office. And especially right now, I've had quite a few folks who are so energetic and so ready to make a change, and they just want to run. And it's like, but that office requires you to do X, and you don't have this to do that. You may not have the network, meaning you haven't been out here, even if you volunteer in your kid's school or volunteer in your neighborhood, because network then equates to being able to raise money, right? And if you want to run for Congress, your average congressional seat, this is just average, you're going to spend $1.3 million. That's what you need, got that. Right? And if you want to run for U.S. Senate, you need at least $6 million to be taken seriously. Okay? There's only 100 of them. It's a serious role. And they serve longer than a president. So it's like, it's not that you got to have it, but where's it coming from? How are you going to raise it? And so there's all these different questions we would go through and talk about, and then say, what aligns with you? Like, what does really matter to you? And then say, well, this is the job that does that. Because sometimes people are confused, like the bus comes and picks up my kids too early. You tell them the commissioner when you should be talking to your school board, right? And so understanding what you're passionate about and then where it fits on the matrix. And then that's kind of how we start to pinpoint and then make a plan from there.
Gotcha.
But I want people to know I'm not a politician.
Okay.
I'm a concerned citizen who turned into a concerned candidate. Period, point blank. I'm not a politician. This was not what I set out to do. I just set out to make sure that those who are representing me were doing it right. We're doing it fair, because you're taking my money. So what are you doing with my money? Why is my money not going to the places that I need to go to so that my kids can have what they need? That was where I was coming from. So if you are a concerned person, get in your community, start volunteering, start going up to people and asking what's going on here, here, and here. That was how I got started.
And that's the best way to get started, because when we're looking at candidates, I really want to work with candidates that have already been doing the work, right? I don't, not that I won't work with you if you haven't, but it's so much easier when you've already been out there in the community and folks already know you and know your worth and know that when you do things, you keep your promise. And so then there'll be other people who will want to work for you. When you haven't done any work and you're like, but I want to run, that makes it really tough, because people don't know you and they don't trust you yet.
There you go.
So now we got to figure out, how do we get them to trust you? Now, it happens. You can definitely get folks elected that have never been involved. But it's so much easier when you're already out there and you know what's going on and you know who the players are and you've already been working for your community and you've already been active in a party or in some other thing that is doing the work that you want to do. It just makes it so much easier to do it.
Yeah, it does, because the party will start looking at you like, well, who is this person? Why have we never seen you come to anything that we put on in the community? So they start to wonder, well, are you a plant from the other side? I mean, they start just looking at you like wondering what is going, why all of a sudden now, right? So you want to start coming around and you want to let people know, I want to be involved in my community. I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing and that we have people that look like us. I cannot express that enough, because we have experiences that other people just don't have, but they're the ones representing us. And so we're wondering, well, why is it no one ever said that the buses need to come across the tracks in Douglas County? Why? Because they don't live across the tracks, right? But all my cousins live across the track, and I know that they should have, they're paying taxes just like I am. So why don't they have the services, the same services that I have? We have to come to the table. We have to look out for one another. If your house is on fire and you are my next door neighbor, and I go, well, they started that fire and that's their property. But if I don't help you put it out, what's going to eventually happen?
It's going to spread.
It's going to spread. We got to know that we are in this together. And if I don't step up, you don't step up, well, who will, right? Who's going to protect us, right? We are each other's keepers.
I know we're kind of getting toward the end, but I really want you all to elaborate on what we were talking about prior to going live about the write-ins. Because they educated me, because I thought you go in there and you can just write somebody in and it's not like that. No.
Please
so
don't do that.
if you one of you could talk to that.
Yeah, so you still have to qualify, as they say, to even be a write-in candidate. There's a process to be a write-in. You can't just go in there and write your name in and be like, I just voted for myself for president. No, you didn't. You just pretty much voted for no one. So you still have to go through a process. Every state is different. Sometimes even down to the county level is different. You may have to get signatures. You may have to pay a different amount of money. You may have to go through some other additional process, just depending on where you live, in order to get on your name, not even on the ballot, but just the right for people to write your name on the ballot. It's a lot of work.
It is.
So all of you who went and voted and just wrote your name or one of your friends' name, or what's that? These nuts, for those people who did that, you wasted a vote. Like you completely wasted a vote.
But I want to say this. Please go down the ballot. Don't stop at the top of the ticket. The top of the ticket is important, but who affects you the most are usually the ones at the bottom of the ticket. Those are the ones that you can actually put your hands on. Those are the ones whose office you can actually go in and sit down and say, hey, I want this. And they know that you mean it because you are voting for them come next election.
See, I would love to flip the ballot. I would love to flip the ballot. I would love to flip it. I would love to put, I think it should be the local folks should be at the top. And that's something that I don't know why we haven't tackled on a bigger land, but we need to flip that ballot. And not just because we need more people voting in local. It's just that is local. So the ones that are closest to me should be at the top, right? And then work my way down. So if Congress and president and governor are all the way at the bottom, people, I think, may start to pay a little bit more attention to what's going on, because I'm going to have to go through all those pages to get to the folks that I'm probably hearing from the most.
Yes.
So the next time I walk into the voting booth, is there a way for me to study for? Okay, so someone shed how I study.
The first thing you need to do is, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you need to find your local Democratic or Republican office. They should have a slate card of everyone that is on that card. And we print them up in Douglas County and we give them to everybody. We put them on cards. If we see you, we're handing you a slate card. And that lets you know all of the people on that ticket. You can go from there. You can Google their names. If you are involved in your local party, they have people that come out to speak. They have rallies. They have meet and greets. You can actually get to talk to these candidates one-on-one.
And I can say Douglas County is really, I can only speak for Douglas County because that's where I live. They're really good about that.
We try to be.
They come out. whether it's to local restaurants, I know some of the churches where you can come and you can talk to them.
That's right.
So definitely.
Yeah. So that's
so it's a slate.
It's called a slate card.
Slate card.
How soon before the election is that available?
We will have them for 4th of July parade.
Okay.
We will be passing them out.
And if your party, unfortunately, is not as great as Douglas, you can usually go on your city or your county website, and the sample ballot with everybody is going to be on there. And so you can always pull that down if you need to do that online. And that's the great thing about, having the internet is that the access is definitely there for you to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do. But studying these candidates, it's going to have to take a dedication, right? And you've got to be interested, because that is part of the problem, is that people want folks to come in their face. And it goes, again, back to the resources. And usually the only ones that come in your face the most are going to be your higher level offices, because that's what they're doing. They're running for a much bigger piece of the pie. But it's going to be important that you do your research for the things that are important to you. And then find the folks that align themselves with that. And please don't be a one-issue voter. Don't do that. That's dangerous. It's dangerous. It's just dangerous.
Well, I vowed for the elections coming up in November. I vowed to be intentional.
Good.
So I am going to do my research.
Intentional.
Yes. I'm going to be intentional on the last.
Love it. Yes.
Pasha.
I'm going to use that.
Please do. Please do.
I need you to be intentional
Please do.
about your vote.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
And it's serious. It's so voting is a serious matter. We can't take it for granted. We can't. And I know we go back to, people fought, bled, and died. Okay, if people fought, bled, and died, it was for a reason, so that we would have the right to vote. Don't take it for granted. As soon as my daughters turned 18, they were voting. They were registered to vote. It is so imperative that since we know, we have to educate the younger ones who maybe don't know. We let them know, okay, what is the current rate? What is the current rate for your? What are you getting paid at work? What's the current employment rate? Oh, it's $7.25. That's just not enough. Okay, well, if you vote for the right people, we can get that bumped up. That's just start at the local. Start at your money. What your bank look like? If your bank not right, let's get your bank right. But that starts with you registering to vote and voting into people who want to raise the minimum wage. Okay.
And I think it's very important for those people who don't vote to understand that so much energy is put into disenfranchising that alone should tell you that your vote counts.
Well, and here's the other thing. It was an interesting string that I was watching on my Facebook feed the other day, and there was a person that was very passionate about the fact that they were talking about all these people that didn't vote in the 2016 election, and she was very passionate about the fact that we shouldn't be forcing people to vote for people that they don't want to vote for. And it's like, look, you are put here to make a choice. That's the reason why you have a vote. You have to make a choice. You have to make a choice. And you have to live with that choice. But just to say, I don't like any of y'all, I'm not going. We can, as African Americans, we can't afford that. If anybody can't afford that, we can't. We can't say, well, I'm mad because my person didn't get picked, so I'm just not going. No. If they can be mad, we can't be mad.
Exactly.
We have to go.
Right.
And even going back, and I just want to keep stating it again, once you vote, that follow through as far as holding people accountable. So even if your person did not get elected, you still have that right to hold them accountable to your concerns and issues, because honestly, just because someone has a different political party doesn't mean that they don't have similar issues that you have. They may have different thought processes about how to achieve it, but you may still have a similar issue. So you can still hold them accountable. And write the check. Write the check.
And even not voting is still voting.
Yes.
We should have learned that in this last election. So many people stayed home. And because you stayed home, you still voted. Whether you casted a ballot or not, you still voted. Because
you made a choice.
You made a choice. You made that choice. Indirectly, you made that choice. So because enough of us did not come to the ballot box and vote for the, I could say, lesser of two evils, maybe, we still made a choice. So staying home is really not a choice.
Got you. We are at the end of this podcast, but I do want the ladies.
Part two.
I do want the ladies to share their social media information and how to stay in contact with you, with the listeners, and also Tarenia. I need to know more about how to get you out to the people, especially in the Douglas County area. So, Keisha, we'll start with you first.
Oh, I'm very easy. Keisha Carter Brown. You can find me on all things from Snapchat to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all Keisha Carter Brown, except my Twitter is the Keisha Carter Brown. So fairly easy to find. Razor Solutions Group, Keisha Carter Brown. Reach out to me. Love to talk to you. If you're ever interested in running for office, love to hear what you want to run for, and I'll talk to you. Doesn't cost you anything. I want to help good people.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Tarenia.
Carthan for DC, CARTHAN, 4 DC.com. On Instagram, it's Elect Tarenia, ELECTTARENIA. And it is the same on Facebook, and I am all over Facebook, Tarenia Carthan. So you can connect with me that way. I am the president of the Democratic Women's Council in Douglas County. I am your vice chair of the Tax Assessors Board in Douglas County. We didn't even get into your taxes, but that's another, these committees that we need to, these boards that we need to be a part of, because they affect, influence, and change. We definitely need to have a second part about this. I'm passionate about getting women on boards and getting women on committees. It's so important. So, yeah.
And where are you going to be for the 4th of July?
4th of July, I will be at the 4th of July parade in Douglas County. Meet me at Wendy's on Fairman Road at 9:30. Yes. I have T-shirts for you, water for you, and literature for you to pass out. Okay. Tell people, vote Tarenia Carthan for commissioner in Douglas County.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Thank you both for joining us today. We are at the end of this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. And I think some takeaways that we have. Write the check. And if you can't write the check, tell someone about your local candidates. And be intentional. Tarenia said be intentional.
I love it.
We're going to be intentional about our votes and our position and how we are a part of the process. All right? So until next time, peace, y'all.
Later.